Hello, friends. Ted Wilcox here again to bring you into another thrilling chapter in our continuing saga of magic, mystery, and the American century. But before we begin, here's Charlie Pulcher with a brief review of our last episode.
Last time, Mickey uncovered the truth about the demon lords, vampires hiding behind heroics, shielded by powerful connections, and targeting women from the native Ohlone community. But they'd grown careless. Military-grade motorcycle tires left their mark at every scene. As Mickey prepared to investigate the latest abduction in San Francisco, the hunters struck. A gunshot dropped her where she stood, hurling her through visions of trains, towers, and a darkness stirring behind it all. Mickey survived, barely, and rose with a new certainty. The hunt is on. But for now, we return to the Winterland Auditorium, where Whiskey's meeting with George Baptiste is about to turn revelatory. What happens next? We'll find out now.
This is the Mythic Chronicles. Entry 1. Crime Wave. Chapter 16. Whiskey Gets Told a Story. October 25th, 1951. A smirk played on George Baptiste's lips as his deep voice rumbled through the large room. 7 nights, 7 moons, 7 gates, 7 tombs, he said in a voice hard as nails in a coffin. The Baron, my ancestor, patron of these saints, stands watch over crossroads, over death, transitions, and choices made. Through his wisdom you were put on a path. Your word tested, Whiskey the Wolf. He lounged on a throne of polished wood and bone, his amber eyes flicking to 2 of the men still aiming weapons at Whiskey. Brother Leo, Brother Jamal. Go check on Brothers Smiley and Slim. If they dead. His tone sharpened like a guillotine blade. Put down this dwimmenip. George's predators glared with open hostility, but Whiskey kept his expression bored. As the 2 saints stepped past him, he calmly plucked a piece of lint from his suit, then leaned against the doorframe and made a show of studying the man before him. Dressed in a black tailcoat, top hat, and dark glasses, George looked every inch the image of voodoo nobility. Even in the dim light, his resemblance to Felix was striking. The same amber eyes, the same tight-trimmed hair and beard, the same broad, leonine build. Even the long scar running from brow to jaw seemed like a darker mirror of his brother's. A few very tense moments later, a voice called from down the hall, cutting through the silence. "They okay, boss? Smiley's gonna need his hand looked at, though." George nodded, rose, cane in hand, and strode toward a door at the back of the room. He paused and glanced over his shoulder. An invitation. Thoughts. Passengers' amusement bloomed, a slow, pleased grin curling in the back of Whiskey's mind. No surprise his aura's heavily shielded. Compared to the fat man's, it's a sandcastle versus a fortress. Not impossible, but he'll be difficult prey. What's interesting is, it doesn't just keep others out. It seems to be locking something in. Still under the eyes of dangerous men, Whiskey nodded, squared his shoulders, and followed his host deeper into the lair. Through the door, he found a surprisingly comfortable office. Crystal-powered lamps cast a warm, golden glow. A smokeless fire shifted lazily through hues in the hearth, providing just enough heat. Soft rugs, simple furniture. Bookshelves sagged under the weight of their contents. It felt more like a professor's office than the sanctum of a crime lord. George removed his hat and, with his back still turned, placed his dark glasses into a case on the shelf. "When I was a boy," he said, prowling toward his desk, "my mama told me a story about a strong and cunning lion." He set down his cane and pulled out a large, well-worn chair. The lion ruled the animal kingdom with the sharpness of his teeth, the edge of his claws. He eased into the seat with a low groan of satisfaction. But one day, a rumor began to spread. Age had dulled his bite, blunted his claws. The old lion had grown weak, He lifted a finger. Rumors, you see, are like a virus. They spread from host to host, infect everything they touch. And this one swept through the kingdom until it reached the lion himself. George leaned forward, shadow edging into his features as he locked eyes with Whiskey. But that old lion was wise, he said. He didn't lash out to prove his strength, didn't chase the rumor down. He let the animals talk, let him believe the lies, even played along, feigned weakness. His smile sharpened, and something deeper flickered. Well, after weeks of playing the part, the lion limped back into his cave and waited. He paused, eyes gleaming. And sure enough, the schemers, emboldened by their own rumors, marched on that cave, expecting a feeble old beast. He slapped a hand on the desk and surged to his feet, moving with the speed of a man half his age. His eyes burned with something hot, volatile. To Whiskey's aura sense, it was like standing too close to open flame. But what they found was a predator, the true king. And the lion gobbled them up, one by one. Then, just as suddenly, it vanished. George exhaled, slow and steady, and sank back into his chair. After that, the animals left standing never thought to question the lion's strength again. He laced his fingers atop the desk and waited, expression unreadable. Passenger mused. If only we were able to decipher who or what he's talking about. A flicker of amusement ghosted across Whiskey's lips. If Isaiah came across as a caged jaguar, George was a hungry lion coming to steal his kill. Fortunately, he knew how to handle scavengers. Did you take Hallie so you could frame Isaiah and start a war, Mr. Baptiste? George blinked. For a beat, he looked genuinely surprised. Then he laughed. Oh, he said, wagging a finger. I see why Fix took a shine to you. No, I did not take my granddaughter. His gaze sharpened, eyes searching, weighing. But I'm sure you already figured that out. Whiskey nodded. You wouldn't have bothered with this meeting if you had. Unless, of course, you invited me here under false pretenses to try killing me. George's grin turned razor sharp. I assure you, Wolf, if I wanted you dead, there'd be no try. Whiskey dipped his head, though the twitch near the edge of his mouth made it clear it wasn't in acquiescence. So if you didn't take Hallie, his tone cooled. Do you know who did? George's expression flattened. His face might as well have been carved from onyx. I assumed that would be obvious. Whiskey shrugged. I don't believe Isaiah took Hallie, Mr. Baptiste. Belief, George murmured, can lead to many mistruths, investigator. Agreed, Whiskey said, arching a brow. So I take it you have proof Isaiah's responsible for Hallie's abduction? And that you are not? George paused. His eyes narrowed. Oh my, Passenger noted. He didn't like that, did he? Since his act of recalcitrance, George said, Isaiah's priority has been building support by spreading false narratives. Taking Hallie furthers that goal. By proving you couldn't protect your own granddaughter? A storm flickered across George's face. You're here, he said, his earlier fire cooling to ice, because my brother, whose voice I hadn't heard in near half a decade, asked me to speak with you. You ain't no guest, Nip. You a service. And if I were you, I'd be careful how I phrase things going forward. Well, hey now, Passenger drawled. I believe that was a threat, Kenichiro. Whiskey's lips twitched again, but he ignored the comment and nodded. My point is, taking Hallie is redundant. Isaiah was already undercutting your reputation dealing in Hunter's Point. It'd be stupid. Your resources dwarf his. He wouldn't stand a chance in a fair fight. And for all his faults, he isn't stupid. He tilted his head, as if struck by a thought. And more than that, Hallie was the reason you spared Isaiah. Why else would you do it? You knew how dangerous he was, had him dead to rights. And she stepped in, begged you to let the one man who could destroy everything you've built live. It came out like a lab report, detached observation, a pattern recorded, not felt. What love you must have for that girl, to allow yourself to do that. He paused. George said nothing, but the heat from his aura flared, betraying more than his face. Which is why I'm guessing you let her slip the chaperones. You knew he'd have his own waiting to pick up where yours left off. This way, at least you knew where she was. You wanted to keep Hallie safe and out of trouble, but the only way to do that pushed her straight into Isaiah's arms. George's gaze sharpened, and for the first time he looked at Whiskey like a man seeing something he hadn't expected. How perceptive. Whiskey shrugged. I'm sure you've heard about Jordan Bryant, the man killed at the scene. He was Isaiah's. Why would Isaiah kill his own man? He let the question settle, then played his ace. Whoever called the police said a man in a top hat, tailcoat, dark glasses, and cotton balls in his nose led them there. He watched George's face, watched his aura. Why would the Baron make sure someone witnessed Hallie's abduction, Mr. Baptiste? George looked ready to retort, but at the mention of the Baron, he stopped. He gave a slow, measured shrug. The Baron is he who stands at the crossroads, he said. And crossroads mean many things: transitions, encounters, beginnings, but most of all, they mean choices. Whiskey nodded, voice quiet. If the Baron is intervening, could it be that he doesn't approve of the choices being made? George's face and aura shifted, flickering for a breath to doubt before jerking so violently into something more guarded. I don't pretend to know the motives of my betters. Whiskey had too much self-control to roll his eyes, but he couldn't keep a trace of exasperation from leaking into his voice. Isaiah swore on his power, he said, his anima, that he didn't take Hallie, Mr. Baptiste. George scowled. Something stirred behind his walls, close, but unreadable. One heartbeat passed. Then Whiskey watched him process the words, grasp their weight, and toss them aside. There's plenty of ways to get past an oath of power, George said, as if that were all Whiskey had said. Whiskey stared at him, jaw tight. Why is he being so stubborn? Isn't it obvious? Passenger murmured. And then it was. You, Whiskey breathed. You want this to happen. George's scowl deepened. For in vain is a net spread in the sight of any bird, he said, voice low and steady. But these men lie in wait for their own blood. They set an ambush for their own lives. Such are the ways of everyone greedy for unjust gain. It takes away the life of its possessors. His gaze darkened. Isaiah bought the lies them spics from South America been sellin'. That wannabe emperor sold his soul for a taste of forbidden fruit, and he's too blind to see he's their bitch boy now. He's a threat to the Mo. I'll do what I've always done. Protect my people. Whiskey frowned. George wasn't a man protecting his city. He was an aging animal guarding its territory. And Isaiah's betrayal, it had cost him something. Something important. So where do you suppose this fits on the way? Passenger asked. Whiskey exhaled as his pulse quickened. It was bound to happen eventually. George was dangerous, a threat to many. The way was clear. He must be dealt with. His hand twitched as he reached for his anima, calling wrath. But he froze when Felix's voice echoed in his mind. The more you look at it, the wobblier it gets. Whiskey blinked. That spike of doubt earlier, he thought, the flash of insight realigning his focus. That was real. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. You've thought of everything, haven't you, Mr. Baptiste? Across the desk, George's brow lifted in silent reply. Whiskey's gaze sharpened. It appears that whether it's in the name of protecting the Mo, by stopping the drug flow on your turf, or avenging your pride, you're using your granddaughter's abduction as a pretext to start a war. He paused, letting the words hang. A war that, until this moment, wasn't justified in the eyes of your people. But that's not all, is it? I said it earlier. You wouldn't have agreed to meet with me if you'd taken Hallie. You love her. You want her home. So you let me come, ask my questions, and see if I could be your instrument, your tool. His eyes narrowed. All while you keep using her as an excuse to eliminate a rival. George's teeth flashed in a grin. You are a perceptive monster. Aren't you, Whiskey the Wolf? Whiskey blinked. Maybe it was meaningless, a throwaway insult, but something bent inside him at the word monster. His head throbbed. He was tired of playing nice with men like Isaiah and George, men who placed ambition above lives and still had the gall to call him a monster. He felt a smile creep across his lips as he tipped his head. "Can we at least get one thing clear, since it's only us?" George arched a brow. Whiskey's tone was flat. "You can tell stories and spout scripture all you want, Mr. Baptiste, but this has nothing to do with you caring about the Mo. This is about you, your fear of losing power." He held George's gaze. "You're a coward." George slammed his hands against the desk, the tattoos beneath his collar flaring red, and vaulted forward in a blur. The slim sword hidden within his cane flashed silver in the low light, its point hovering inches from Whiskey's throat. "What did I say about choosing your words?" His voice rose. "I am George Sylvester Baptiste, High Ungan, direct descendant of the Iwa Baron Samedi, head of the Gede family and leader of his saints. Everything I do is for my people, for their well-being." His eyes blazed. "My will and my word are that of the Baron himself, and I will not be judged by a monster like you, you thrice-damned Dwimmer nip." Whiskey crossed his arms, one hand resting near his gun. He smiled, as if the blade weren't there. "I'm not here to discuss your schemes, Mr. Baptiste," he said evenly. "I'm here to find Hallie, and I can't do that while you and your saints are setting the city on fire. Give me time to work, before you paint the streets red with innocent blood." George's knuckles whitened around the sword's hilt, the leather creaking beneath his grip. Then, slowly, controlled, he drew a breath and lowered the blade. "All right," he said. "You've got until Saturday, the Baron's day's end. If you don't find nothing by then, the curse I drop on Isaiah's head will make the atom bomb look like a Christmas party." Whiskey did the math. "That's less than 72 hours. George flashed a predatory smile. "Then you best get a move on." He sank back into his chair. "Now get out of my house. You got a job to do." Whiskey studied him for a long moment. 72 hours to start from scratch on a case already a week cold. His fingers twitched. He wanted to argue, demand more time. Hells, he wanted to do much more than that. But then he felt George's resolve settle across the table. It would be a fight, one that would push him to his limits. He'd have to burn resources he might need before this investigation was through. So he forced himself to breathe, to think. He met the man's amber gaze, so like Felix's, yet unmistakably different. Yes, it was easy to believe George deserved to die. But he was innocent of the crime Whiskey was investigating, and therefore not the way. At least, not yet. It was something Whiskey could revisit. Yes, George can wait. Will wait. He pulled the thought back, buried it deep, and gave a single, deliberate nod. "Very well, Mr. Baptiste," he said. "I'll see you soon."
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Mythic Chronicles. If you're enjoying the journey, please consider rating and reviewing the podcast. Your words might help bring more mythics into the fold. To listen ahead, unlock bonus content, and gain access to VIP Discord roles and behind-the-scenes updates, check out our Patreon or visit us at SeanTLaffertyBooks.com. I'm Sean. Thanks again for being here.